I thought I was building a legacy. Instead, my protege, Kate, the woman I trusted like a daughter, stabbed me in the back with a smile. She replaced me with her 24-year-old son, calling me too slow, while handing him credit for my inventions, the very designs that made us millions. They walked into that boardroom, smug and rehearsed, thinking I'd just fade away. But they forgot one thing. Every patent, every blueprint, every breakthrough was under my name. When she tried to sell the company, the board saw the truth and demanded me back. Now, she's fighting to keep her job. This isn't just revenge. This is karma with a blueprint. If you are watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you are viewing from. Kindly hit the like and subscribe to hear more real stories about family loyalty and betrayal. They might just change how you see your own relationships. My name is Daniel Spencer, and at 52, I thought I'd earned my peace. 27 years of waking up before dawn, sketching designs until my fingers cramped, building something from nothing. I'd done my time. The company Kate and I built together was supposed to be my legacy, my comfortable retirement cushion. I still remember the day I met Kate Morrison 15 years ago. She was 32, hungry for success, with sharp eyes that caught every detail. I was already established in the industry, had a decent reputation for innovative cooling system designs. She came to me with business acumen I lacked and a promise. Together, we'd revolutionize industrial refrigeration. And we did. Spencer Tech Industries grew from a garage operation to a $40 million company. My designs, compact, energy-efficient cooling systems that cut costs by 30%, became industry standard. Kate handled the business side brilliantly. We were perfect partners. Or so I thought. The morning everything changed started like any other Tuesday. I arrived at the office at 7, coffee in hand, ready to review the new prototype specs. Kate's car was already in the parking lot, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was seeing her son Ethan's sports car next to it. Ethan was 24, fresh out of business school, and had been interning with us for 6 months. Nice kid, I thought, eager to learn. I'd spent countless hours teaching him about our systems, explaining the engineering principles behind each design. He seemed genuinely interested, always asking questions, taking notes. I walked into the conference room and froze. The entire board was there, all 5 members, plus Kate and Ethan at the head of the table. My designs were spread across the surface, but something was different. The copyright notices had been altered. "Daniel," Kate said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Please sit down." The room felt suddenly cold, which was ironic given our business. I remained standing. "What's going on, Kate?" Board member Gregory Chin cleared his throat. "We've called this meeting to discuss the company's future direction. Kate has presented a compelling case for restructuring." I watched as Ethan straightened his tie, a tie I'd helped him pick out for his first day. The kid couldn't look at me either. "Restructuring," I repeated. Kate finally looked up. "Daniel, you've been an incredible asset to this company. Your contributions over the years have been substantial. But the industry is changing. We need fresh perspectives, younger energy. Someone who understands modern market dynamics. I designed every product in our catalog," I said slowly, my voice steady despite the earthquake in my chest. "And Ethan has been instrumental in refining those designs," Kate said quickly. "His innovations have taken your foundation and brought it into the 21st century. I looked at Ethan then. This boy I'd mentored, who'd called me Uncle Dan at company picnics. "Is that so?" He nodded, finally meeting my gaze with something I didn't recognize. "Ambition, maybe. Or just greed. The new compact model increases efficiency by 12%. My modifications to your original blueprint made it possible." My modifications. The words hung in the air like ice crystals. "You mean the modifications I showed you last month? The ones from my personal notebook?" Kate interjected smoothly. "Daniel, no one's diminishing your past contributions. We're offering a generous severance package. Full benefits for 2 years, and you'll retain your equity stake. You're firing me." It wasn't a question. "Transitioning," Gregory offered helpfully. You've mentioned wanting to slow down, haven't you? This gives you that opportunity while ensuring the company continues to thrive. I looked around the room at faces I'd known for years. Not one of them would meet my eyes except Kate, and in hers, I saw something that chilled me more than any industrial freezer: calculation. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This had been planned. The patents, I said suddenly. Kate's expression flickered. What about them? Nothing. Just thinking out loud. I forced my face to remain neutral while my mind raced. The patents were in my name. I'd insisted on it from the beginning, a small paranoia that now seemed like prophecy. Kate had the business registered in both our names, but the actual technical patents? Those were mine. We'll need you to sign some documents, Kate continued, sliding a folder across the table. Standard transition paperwork. Non-compete agreements, transfer of intellectual property. I'll have my lawyer review everything, I interrupted. Of course. Her smile was practiced, professional. The same smile she'd worn when we'd signed our first $1 million contract. Take your time, though we'd appreciate having everything finalized by week's end. I picked up the folder without opening it. 15 years, Kate. Something human flickered in her eyes, guilt maybe, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. The business world isn't sentimental, Daniel. You taught me that. I had taught her that, along with everything else. I left the conference room with my dignity intact and drove home in silence. It wasn't until I pulled into my garage that I allowed myself to feel the full weight of betrayal. Not just the business betrayal. That was just money and metal. It was the personal betrayal that cut deepest. I'd been at Ethan's high school graduation. I'd written his recommendation letter for college. And Kate, I'd saved her company once before, years ago, when a design flaw nearly bankrupted us. I'd worked 70-hour weeks to fix it, redesigning the entire system from scratch. But I wasn't broken. Not yet. Because I knew something they didn't, something that would matter very soon. The patents weren't just legal documents. They were my children, my creations, my life's work. And unlike trust, they couldn't be stolen with a boardroom coup. I poured myself a scotch and opened my laptop. Time to call my patent attorney. If Kate wanted to play corporate hardball, she was about to learn that I'd been in this game a lot longer than her son had been alive. The ice in my glass clinked as I raised it in a mock toast to the empty room. Here's to fresh perspectives, I muttered, and began to plan. The next morning, I met with my attorney, Robert Young, at his downtown office. Robert had been handling my patents for 20 years, a meticulous man who understood both engineering and law. His expression grew darker as I explained the situation. They want you to sign over your intellectual property? He adjusted his glasses, scanning the documents Kate had given me. This is aggressive, and frankly, stupid on their part. How so? Robert spread out a series of files. Every patent for Spencer Tech's core technology is registered under your name personally, not the company. You were smart to insist on that. Without these patents, Spencer Tech can't manufacture, sell, or even modify your designs legally. I leaned back in my chair, feeling a cold satisfaction. So what happens if I refuse to sign? They're essentially running a company built on your intellectual property. Without your permission, they're looking at patent infringement. Every unit they sell, every contract they sign, it's all legally questionable. The full scope of Kate's miscalculation was becoming clear. She'd been so focused on the business structure that she'd overlooked the technical foundation. It was like stealing a car but forgetting you need the keys. There's more, Robert continued, pulling up files on his computer. I did some digging after you called. 3 months ago, Kate started shopping the company to potential buyers. Quietly, through intermediaries. My blood chilled. She was planning to sell? Apparently. But here's where it gets interesting. Every potential buyer backed out after due diligence. Want to guess why? The patents. Exactly. No serious buyer would touch a company where the core technology isn't actually owned by the business. Kate's been trying to solve this problem, and pushing you out while claiming Ethan developed everything was probably her solution. I thought about Ethan in that conference room, claiming my modifications as his own. The preparation that must have taken. The conversations Kate must have had with him, coaching him on what to say. My stomach turned. What about the board? I asked. They seemed convinced. Robert pulled up another document. The board has a fiduciary duty to the shareholders. If they knew about the patent situation and still supported this move, they're potentially liable. My guess? Kate didn't tell them everything. I spent the rest of the day with Robert, going through every patent, every design, every technical document. By evening, the full picture had emerged, and it was worse than I'd thought. Not only were the patents in my name, but I'd also discovered something else. The innovations Ethan had claimed were actually from my private development files. I'd been working on next-generation designs at home, planning to surprise Kate with them for our company's anniversary. Somehow, Ethan had accessed these files. I thought back to 6 weeks ago. Ethan had come to my house to help me set up a new computer. He'd been so helpful, so eager. I'd left him alone in my home office while I made lunch. The violation felt personal. This wasn't just corporate maneuvering. This was theft from someone who'd trusted him like family. That evening, I called my son Christopher. At 28, he was everything Ethan pretended to be. Genuinely brilliant, MIT educated, and currently working for a tech firm in Silicon Valley. "Dad, that's insane," he said after I explained. "They seriously thought they could just take your life's work." "Apparently. What's your plan?" I stared at the patents spread across my dining table. I'm not sure yet. Part of me wants to just walk away, let them realize their mistake when they try to manufacture without my permission. But 15 years of my life is in that company. My designs, my reputation, my legacy. I can't just let them steal it and give credit to a kid who can barely read a blueprint. Christopher was quiet for a moment. I've been thinking about moving back home anyway. The Silicon Valley grind is getting old. Chris, I'm serious, Dad. If you're going to war, you need someone you can trust watching your back. Plus, he added with a hint of mischief, I've always wanted to see what you could do when you're not playing nice. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Kate, about how our partnership had started. She'd been struggling with a failing refrigeration business she'd inherited from her father. I'd helped her turn it around, bringing my designs and expertise. We'd built something beautiful together. When had it soured? When had she stopped seeing me as a partner and started seeing me as an obstacle? I thought about all the times I'd covered for her mistakes, all the late nights solving problems she'd created with overpromises to clients. I thought about Ethan as a child, running around our office, asking to see the cool machines. The betrayal went deeper than business. It was personal, calculated, and cruel. She'd used my affection for her son against me, turned my mentorship into a weapon. But as Robert had shown me, she'd also made a critical error. In her hunger to claim everything, she'd overlooked the very foundation of our success, the legal ownership of the technology itself. I pulled up the company website on my phone, looking at the products page. Every single item there, from our flagship industrial cooling system to our latest compact model, bore my patents, my designs, my innovations. Kate thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She was about to learn that I'd been playing a completely different game all along. The next morning, I got a call from Gregory Chin. "Daniel, I hope we can resolve this amicably. Kate mentioned you had concerns about the transition documents." "Gregory, are you aware that I personally hold all the patents for Spencer Tech's technology?" The silence on the other end was telling. "I'm sorry, what? Every design the company manufactures is based on my personal patents. Check the records if you don't believe me." "I'm curious, did Kate mention this when she proposed replacing me with her son?" More silence. Then carefully. "Perhaps we should meet to discuss this further." "Perhaps we should," I agreed. "But Gregory, you might want to consult with the board's legal counsel first. I have a feeling this situation is more complex than Kate led you to believe." I hung up feeling grimly satisfied. The first domino had been pushed. Now I just had to wait for the rest to fall. Christopher flew in the next day, and we spent hours going through everything. He had ideas I hadn't considered, strategies that came from his years in the tech world. Together, we began to build our response. Kate had orchestrated her betrayal carefully, but she'd built it on a foundation of sand. She thought she could erase me from the company I'd co-founded, claim my work as her son's, and walk away with everything. She was about to learn exactly how wrong she was. The call came at midnight, 3 days after my conversation with Gregory. Kate's voice was strained, missing its usual confident tone. "Daniel, we need to talk." "It's midnight, Kate." "I know what time it is," she snapped, then caught herself. "Sorry. Can we meet tomorrow? Just the two of us." "Why would I do that?" A pause. "Because despite everything, we built something together. 15 years should count for something." I almost laughed. Now 15 years mattered? But I agreed to meet her at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown where we'd celebrated our first major contract years ago. She was already there when I arrived, looking haggard. The polished executive who'd ambushed me in the boardroom was gone. This was the Kate I remembered from our early days, when we'd worked side by side through countless challenges. "The board called an emergency meeting," she said without preamble. "They're threatening to remove me as CEO." Imagine that. Her jaw tightened. "Don't be smug, Daniel. It doesn't suit you. Neither does betrayal, but you wore it pretty well last week." She had the grace to look ashamed. "I know how it looked." "How it looked?" I leaned forward. "Kate, you conspired with your son to steal my designs. You coached him to claim credit for my work. You tried to force me to sign over my patents while pushing me out of the company I co-founded. That's not how it looked. That's what happened." "The market is changing," she said weakly. "We needed fresh perspectives." "Stop." I held up my hand. "At least respect me enough not to repeat the script. We both know this wasn't about fresh perspectives. You wanted to sell the company, and I was in the way." Her facade finally cracked. "Fine. Yes. I had offers, good ones. Enough to set us both up for life. But buyers kept walking away because the patents weren't company assets. I tried to convince you to transfer them for years, but you always refused. Because I knew this day might come. I never planned." She stopped, shaking her head. "That's not true. After Ethan graduated, after I saw how ambitious he was, I started thinking about succession. About legacy. He's my son, Daniel. My only child. I wanted to give him something meaningful. So you gave him my life's work. I was going to compensate you fairly. With my own equity in the company I helped build? How generous." She slumped in her chair. "What do you want?" "What I want is to turn back time to before you decided I was expendable. But since that's impossible, I'll settle for justice." "The board wants you back," she said quietly. "They're insisting on it. The patent situation has them panicked. Potential buyers are threatening lawsuits, saying we misrepresented our assets." "And what about Ethan's innovations?" Her face flushed. "He may have overstated his contributions. He stole my private design files when he was at my house. That's not overstating, that's theft." Kate's eyes widened. "Daniel, I didn't know." "Yes, you did. Maybe not the specifics, but you knew he couldn't have developed those modifications himself. You just didn't care because it served your purpose." We sat in silence for a moment. Around us, the coffee shop buzzed with normal life. People working on laptops, friends chatting, the espresso machine hissing. It felt surreal to be discussing the destruction of a 15-year partnership over lattes. "So what happens now?" Kate asked finally. "Now I execute my plan." She looked up sharply. "What plan?" I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Did you really think I'd just walk away? That I'd let you and Ethan claim credit for decades of my work without consequences? Daniel, I've already filed papers with the patent office, documenting the theft of my intellectual property. I've also sent cease and desist letters to every one of Spencer Tech's manufacturing partners. informing them that producing my designs without my explicit permission constitutes patent infringement. The color drained from her face. You can't. I can, and I have. By my estimation, you have about 2 weeks before production grinds to a halt. Less if our bigger clients get nervous and start canceling orders. You'll destroy the company. No, Kate. You destroyed it the moment you chose betrayal over partnership. But I wasn't done. Christopher and I had spent days refining our strategy, and the production freeze was just the beginning. There's more, I continued. I've been in contact with several of the buyers you've been courting. Turns out they're very interested in acquiring the patents directly. From me. You wouldn't dare. Sell my own intellectual property? Why not? I'm just a slow old man who doesn't understand modern business, remember? Kate's hands were shaking now. Daniel, please. Think about our employees. The people who depend on us. I have thought about them. Which is why I've made sure any deal I make includes job protection for everyone except senior management. I paused. That means everyone except you and Ethan. This is revenge, she accused. No. Revenge would be pressing criminal charges for intellectual property theft. This is just business. You taught me that, remember? The business world isn't sentimental. I stood to leave, but Kate grabbed my arm. Wait, there has to be another way. What if I step down? Voluntarily. Make you CEO. Full control. With Ethan as my heir apparent? I don't think so. Then what? Tell me what you want, and I'll make it happen. I looked down at her, this woman I'd once trusted with everything. I want my life's work respected. I want credit for what I've created. And I want your son to publicly admit that he stole my designs and claimed them as his own. I can't ask him to do that. It would ruin his career. He ruined his own career the moment he chose theft over honest work. I left her there, staring at her cold coffee. Outside, Christopher was waiting in his car. How'd it go? He asked. About as expected. She's desperate but still trying to protect Ethan. And our next move? I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a contact I hadn't used in years. Remember Nathan Cross? The journalist who did that profile on you 5 years ago? That's the one. He's been asking for a follow-up story. I think it's time to give him one. Christopher grinned. Going public. Kate wanted to make this about age and innovation. Let's see how the industry feels when they learn a 24-year-old business school graduate claimed credit for technology developed over decades. We drove back to my house, where Robert Young was waiting with more documents. The legal framework was in place. The business consequences were in motion. Now it was time for the public phase of our plan. The cease and desist letters have been delivered, Robert confirmed. I've already received calls from 3 manufacturing partners requesting clarification. Also, Gregory Chen called. The board wants to meet with you tomorrow. Tell them I'll meet, but only with my legal representation present. Already done. There's one more thing. Ethan Morrison tried to file patents for the modifications he claimed. They've been rejected due to prior art, your original designs. I felt a cold satisfaction. Every move Kate and Ethan had made was unraveling. That night, Christopher and I refined our media strategy. We wouldn't just expose the truth. We'd make it impossible to ignore. Nathan Cross would get his exclusive, but we'd also prepare a detailed technical paper showing the evolution of my designs, complete with timestamps and documentation proving their origin. Dad, are you sure about this? Christopher asked at one point. Once we go public, there's no going back. I thought about Kate's plea in the coffee shop, about our employees, about 15 years of partnership. Then I thought about Ethan standing in that boardroom, claiming my work as his own while Kate smiled approvingly. I'm sure, I said. They wanted to erase me from my own story. Time to remind everyone who really wrote it. The plan was set. In 48 hours, the industry would know the truth. The board would have to act. And Kate would finally understand the true cost of betrayal. As Christopher headed to bed, I sat in my office, surrounded by blueprints and patents. Each one represented countless hours of work, problems solved, innovations discovered. This wasn't just about business or money or even revenge. It was about legacy, and I wasn't going to let anyone steal mine. The boardroom at Spencer Tech had never felt smaller. Gregory Chin sat at the head of the table, flanked by the other board members. Kate was notably absent. The board had excluded her from this meeting. Robert Young sat beside me, briefcase full of documentation. "Gentlemen, Ms. Rodriguez," Gregory began, nodding to the one female board member. "We're here to address a serious situation that threatens the very existence of Spencer Tech Industries." "Let's skip the dramatics," I said. "You know why we're here." Kate Morrison attempted to force me out while allowing her son to claim credit for my patented designs. Now you're facing potential lawsuits, manufacturing shutdowns, and a public relations nightmare. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Board member Thomas Walsh leaned forward. "Mr. Spencer, what exactly are you proposing?" Robert opened his briefcase and distributed copies of our proposal. "My client is willing to license his patents to Spencer Tech under specific conditions. First, Kate Morrison and Ethan Morrison must be removed from all positions within the company, effective immediately." "That seems," Gregory started. "I'm not finished," Robert continued. "Second, Mr. Spencer will assume the role of CEO with complete operational control. Third, Ethan Morrison will issue a public statement acknowledging his false claims regarding the design innovations. Fourth, the company will issue a formal apology to Mr. Spencer and correct all public records regarding the attribution of the patents." The room was silent as they reviewed the documents. "And if we refuse?" asked Patricia Rodriguez. "Then Mr. Spencer will proceed with the sale of his patents to Zenith Industries, who has already made a substantial offer. Spencer Tech will be left with no legal right to manufacture any of its current products." I watched their faces pale. Zenith was our biggest competitor. "This is extortion," Thomas sputtered. "No," I said calmly. "This is consequence." Kate gambled with something that wasn't hers to gamble with. She lost. My phone buzzed. A text from Christopher. "Cross article just went live. Gentlemen, Ms. Rodriguez, you might want to check the Industrial Cooling Quarterly website," I suggested. Gregory pulled out his tablet, and his face went ashen as he read. Nathan Cross had done his homework. The article, titled "The Real Innovation Behind Spencer Tech, A Pioneer's Stolen Legacy," was devastating in its thoroughness. It detailed my history with the company, the evolution of each patented design, and included technical comparisons showing how Ethan's innovations were actually my original concepts. The coup de grace was a series of time-stamped emails showing Ethan asking me detailed questions about designs he later claimed as his own. "How did he get these emails?" Patricia asked. "I provided them," I said, along with security footage from my home office showing Ethan accessing my computer during his visit 6 weeks ago. The board members exchanged glances. The legal and public relations implications were clear. "We need to discuss this privately," Gregory said. "Of course. Mr. Young and I will wait outside. But gentlemen, the Zenith offer expires at 5 p.m. today." We left them to their deliberations. In the hallway, Robert checked his phone and smiled. 3 more manufacturing partners have called. They want assurance about the patent situation before they'll continue production. An hour later, we were called back in. Gregory looked like he'd aged 5 years. "The board accepts your terms," he said quietly. "Kate and Ethan Morrison's employment will be terminated immediately. You'll assume the CEO position as soon as the paperwork is completed. And the public statement? We'll need to coordinate with legal." "No coordination," I interrupted. "Ethan issues the statement I've prepared, or the deal is off." Patricia slid a tablet across the table. "Kate is on the line. She wants to speak with you." I looked at the screen showing Kate's face. She'd been crying. "Daniel, please. Don't do this to Ethan. He's just a kid who made a mistake. He's a 24-year-old man who committed intellectual property theft," I corrected. "And you enabled him. You don't get to play the protective mother now. I'll do anything. I'll leave the company, leave the state if you want. Just don't destroy his future." "I'm not destroying anything. I'm simply insisting on the truth. If the truth destroys his future, that's on both of you. I ended the call and turned back to the board. Do we have a deal? One by one, they nodded. Robert began pulling out contracts. There's one more thing, I said. I want Christopher Spencer appointed as Chief Technical Officer. Your son? Thomas asked. Isn't that nepotism? Unlike Ethan Morrison, Christopher has a master's degree in mechanical engineering from MIT and 5 years of experience in the tech industry. He's also the only person I trust to protect my patents going forward. Non-negotiable. They agreed. They had no choice. That afternoon, Ethan Morrison stood in front of cameras in the Spencer Tech lobby, reading from the statement I'd written. I want to address recent claims about innovations I've credited to myself. After careful reflection, I must acknowledge that the designs in question were created entirely by Daniel Spencer. In my enthusiasm to prove myself, I misrepresented my contributions and claimed credit for work that wasn't mine. I apologize to Mr. Spencer, to Spencer Tech, and to the industry for this deception. I take full responsibility for my actions and the damage they've caused. His voice cracked several times. Kate stood behind him, her face a mask of controlled fury. When he finished, reporters shouted questions, but they hurried away without answering. The next morning, I walked into Spencer Tech as CEO for the first time. The reception was mixed. Some employees looked relieved, others wary. I called an all-hands meeting for that afternoon. I know the last few weeks have been turbulent, I began, looking out at the assembled staff. Changes in leadership, uncertainty about the future, concerns about your jobs. Let me be clear, no one except senior management will lose their position because of this transition. Spencer Tech was built by all of us, and it will continue to thrive because of all of us. The relief in the room was palpable. We're going to refocus on what made this company great: innovation, quality, and integrity. My son Christopher will be joining us as CTO, and together we'll be launching a new research and development initiative. The future of cooling technology starts here, starts now, and starts with all of you. The applause was genuine this time. Later, in what used to be Kate's office, Christopher and I reviewed the damage. 3 major contracts were in jeopardy, 2 manufacturing partners were skittish, and the company's reputation had taken a hit. It's going to take time to rebuild trust, Christopher said. I know, but we've got something Kate never understood. The foundation is solid because it's built on real innovation, not stolen ideas. My phone rang. Unknown number. Daniel Spencer. Mr. Spencer, this is Amanda Chun from Zenith Industries. I wanted to personally thank you for considering our offer, and to let you know that despite your decision to remain with Spencer Tech, we'd be interested in discussing potential collaboration opportunities. I smiled. I appreciate that, Amanda. Perhaps we can arrange a meeting next month. Christopher raised an eyebrow as I hung up. Collaboration with Zenith? Why not? The industry's big enough for honest competition and strategic partnerships. And Kate, I looked out the window at the parking lot where Kate's reserved spot sat empty. Kate made her choice. She chose ambition over integrity, her son's false pride over 15 years of partnership. Now she gets to live with those choices. Think she'll land somewhere else? Probably. Kate's a survivor. But her reputation in this industry is finished. Word travels fast when you try to steal from a partner. That evening, alone in my new office, I pulled out the photo I'd kept in my desk drawer. Kate and me at the company's 5th anniversary party, both of us grinning, holding champagne glasses. We'd been so optimistic then, so sure of our partnership. I didn't throw it away. Instead, I filed it in a drawer marked Lessons Learned. Christopher knocked and entered. Security footage just showed Kate cleaning out her personal items. She left her key card at the front desk. Good. You okay, Dad? I considered the question. Was I okay? I'd lost a business partner I'd trusted. I'd been forced to destroy a professional relationship that had defined 15 years of my life. I'd had to publicly humiliate a young man I'd once mentored. But I'd protected my legacy. I'd stood up for my work. I'd shown that age and experience weren't weaknesses to be discarded, but strengths to be valued. Yeah, I said finally. I'm okay. Better than okay. For the first time in months, I feel like myself again. Christopher smiled. Good, because we've got a company to run, and I've got about a dozen ideas for improving the efficiency of our cooling systems. Already, you've been here one day. What can I say? Must be genetic. We spent the next 3 hours going over his ideas, sketching designs, debating possibilities. It felt right, working with someone who shared my passion for innovation, who respected the work rather than trying to steal it. As we finally wrapped up near midnight, Christopher asked, "Any regrets?" I thought about Kate, about Ethan, about 15 years of partnership ended in betrayal. No, I said honestly. They made their choices. I made mine. And tomorrow we keep building. The office was quiet as we left, but the factory floor still hummed with activity. Our cooling systems were running again, the cease and desist orders lifted now that I was in charge. The company Kate had tried to steal was mine to protect and grow. Justice felt like a cold draft, but it was a clean cold, the kind that preserved rather than destroyed. 6 months later, I stood in the newly renovated R&D lab, watching Christopher and his team test our latest prototype. The compact cooling unit was 30% more efficient than anything on the market, including our own previous models. Real innovation, honestly earned. The test results are incredible, Christopher said, pulling off his safety goggles. We could revolutionize cold chain transportation with this. File the patents, I told him. Under the company name this time. He raised an eyebrow. You sure? The company is secure now. Besides, this is your innovation. The patents should reflect that. My phone buzzed. Gregory Chen's name appeared on the screen. Daniel, I wanted to give you a heads up. Kate Morrison has been hired as a consultant for Ridgeline Cooling Systems. I wasn't surprised. Kate was too talented to stay unemployed for long. Thanks for letting me know. There's more. She's apparently claiming she was forced out unfairly. Ridgeline's CEO called me for a reference. What did you tell him? The truth. That she attempted to orchestrate intellectual property theft and got caught. And he hired her anyway, but in a limited capacity. No access to technical departments. After hanging up, I found myself thinking about Kate's fall. From CEO to consultant, from decision-maker to advisor, from trusted partner to industry pariah. The business world had a long memory for betrayal. A knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. My assistant entered. Mr. Spencer, there's a young man here to see you. Ethan Morrison. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important. I hadn't seen Ethan since his public confession. Part of me wanted to send him away, but curiosity won. Send him in. Ethan looked different. The cocky business school graduate was gone, replaced by someone who'd learned hard lessons. He carried a folder and couldn't quite meet my eyes. Mr. Spencer, thank you for seeing me. What do you want, Ethan? He shifted uncomfortably. I wanted to apologize. Properly. Not reading from a statement, but actually apologize. Go on. I know what I did was wrong. Not just legally, but morally. You mentored me, trusted me, and I repaid that by stealing from you. He paused, swallowing hard. My mother, she painted a picture of you as someone holding the company back. She said you were jealous of younger talent, that you'd never give me a real chance to prove myself. So you decided to take that chance by theft. I convinced myself I was just borrowing ideas, that I'd improve on them and make them my own. But that's just what I told myself to feel better about stealing. He opened the folder and pulled out papers. I've documented everything I took, every design I claimed, every modification that was actually yours. I want to make it right. I reviewed the documents. They were thorough, detailing not just what he'd taken, but how he'd accessed it. It was a complete confession, far more detailed than what he'd been forced to say publicly. Why now? I asked. Because I can't move forward until I own what I did. No one will hire me in this industry. That's the consequence of my actions. But I want to earn my way back, honestly this time. What are you doing now? Working at a hardware store. Studying at night. I enrolled in an actual engineering program. If I'm going to work in this field, I need to really understand it, not just pretend I do. I leaned back, studying him. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that might have been genuine humility. I can't undo what you did, I said finally. The trust is broken. I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness or a job or anything like that. I just needed you to know that I understand what I did was wrong, and I'm trying to be better. He stood to leave, but I stopped him. Ethan, the engineering program, stick with it. Learn the fundamentals. Understand why things work, not just how to take credit for them. And in a few years, if you've actually built something of your own, something real and honest, then we can talk again. His eyes widened with surprise and something like hope. Really, I'm not promising anything, but everyone deserves a chance to redeem themselves. Just remember, there are no shortcuts to real innovation. After he left, Christopher appeared in my doorway. I overheard. You're softer than you let on. Maybe. Or maybe I just remember being young and making mistakes. His were bigger than most, but if he's genuinely trying to change. You think he is? Time will tell. But that confession he brought, he didn't have to do that. It won't change anything legally, but it shows accountability. The months continued to pass. Spencer Tech thrived under new leadership. We launched 3 new product lines, filed 12 new patents, and increased revenue by 40%. The board, once skeptical of my return, now sang my praises at every opportunity. Christopher proved himself invaluable, not just as my son, but as a brilliant engineer in his own right. His innovations built on mine but went beyond them, pushing into territories I'd never imagined. The company was becoming what it always should have been, a true collaboration of minds and generations. 1 year after the coup, Nathan Cross contacted me for a follow-up article. The industry wants to know how Spencer Tech pulled off such a dramatic turnaround, he said over coffee. Simple. We focused on what matters, innovation, integrity, and respecting the people who actually do the work. And Kate Morrison? What about her? She's been making waves at Ridgeline, claiming she was the real visionary behind Spencer Tech's success. I shrugged. People can claim whatever they want. The patents tell the real story. Speaking of patents, I noticed the recent filings are under the company name, not yours personally. I learned my lesson about protecting my work. But I also learned that real strength comes from building something bigger than yourself. Christopher and his team are creating the future. I'm just making sure they have the foundation to build on. Nathan scribbled notes, then looked up. One last question. Any regrets about how things played out? I thought about it seriously. I regret that a partnership I valued ended in betrayal. I regret that Ethan was put in a position where he thought theft was his best option. But I don't regret protecting my work or standing up for the truth. The article, when it came out, was titled The Redemption of Spencer Tech, How Integrity Saved an Industry Leader. It featured a photo of Christopher and me in the lab, surrounded by the next generation of engineers we'd hired. That evening, I found a handwritten letter slipped under my office door. I recognized Kate's handwriting immediately. Daniel, I know you don't want to hear from me, but I needed to write this. I was wrong. Not just strategically or legally, but fundamentally wrong. I let ambition and my desire to secure Ethan's future cloud my judgment. I betrayed not just a business partner, but a friend who'd stood by me through everything. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I understand now what I threw away. Spencer Tech's success isn't about your patents or my business acumen. It was about trust, respect, and partnership. I destroyed that, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I hope you and Christopher continue to build great things. The industry needs people like you, people who value integrity over easy wins. Kate, I read the letter twice, then filed it with the old photo in my lessons learned drawer. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt. But acknowledging the loss was its own form of closure. Christopher knocked and entered, holding a champagne bottle. Guess what? The Johnson Industries contract just came through. Biggest deal in company history. Then let's celebrate, I said, pulling out 2 glasses. As we toasted, I thought about the journey from that awful morning in the conference room to now. Kate had tried to push me out, claiming I was too old, too slow for modern business. Instead, I'd proven that experience, integrity, and genuine innovation would always triumph over shortcuts and theft. To the future, Christopher said, raising his glass. To the future, I agreed. Built on a foundation of truth. Outside my window, the factory floor hummed with activity. Our cooling systems, my designs, Christopher's improvements, our team's dedication, were heading out into the world. Each unit carried not just technology, but a story of resilience, justice, and the power of standing up for what's right. Kate had been wrong about one thing above all. I wasn't too slow for modern business. I was just too principled to play it her way. And in the end, that made all the difference. The cold draft of karma had blown through Spencer Tech, clearing out the deception and leaving room for honest growth. And as I watched my son lead his team in developing the next breakthrough, I knew the best was yet to come. Some might call it revenge. I called it justice. But mostly, I called it exactly what Kate had taught me all those years ago, just business. The only difference was I'd learned to do business without losing my soul. The champagne was perfectly chilled, crisp and clean like the new beginning we'd earned. And somewhere across town, Kate was learning the hardest lesson of all. When you build your success on someone else's foundation, don't be surprised when they pull it out from under you. I raised my glass one more time, silently, to the empty air. Here's to fresh perspectives, indeed. Thank you for spending your time with my story. Feel free to share your thoughts or reactions in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.